Welcome to Stage Black with your host, Retired U.S. Army Chief Warrant Officer 2, Latia Suttle, and U.S. Navy Veteran Daphne Wright. Always been here, not going anywhere.
Today's show will feature retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Jackson-Kelley. Patricia Jackson-Kelley is a military veteran and a retiree of the United States Army and a veteran of the United States Air Force and Navy Reserves, having served our country collectively for 26 years. Amazing. She earned the rank of Lieutenant Colonel after serving honorably on both active duty and in the reserves. Lieutenant Colonel Jackson-Kelley recently completed a 4-year impressive term as the national president of the National Association of Black Military Women, with chapters all across the United States. She was also recently inducted into the U.S. Army's Women Foundation Army Hall of Fame. That was recent, like March of this year. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
While serving our nation in the armed forces and post-service, Lieutenant Colonel Jackson-Kelley served as the program manager for a 40-bed substance abuse ward and as the Women's Veteran Program Manager with the Department of Veteran Affairs in Los Angeles, right?
Right.
Okay. During her term on the executive staff, she was instrumental in implementing programs and increased funds and resources for women veterans. During her time at the VA hospital, she served as one of the initial board members during the inauguration formation of U.S. Vets. Wow. U.S. Vets is one of the largest veteran service organizations. Outstanding. Patricia Jackson-Kelley is also the commander of the County of Los Angeles, Supervisor Holly Mitchell, 2nd District, Military and Veteran Affairs. She is also the immediate past commander for the American Legion Jackie Robinson 252 Post. Most recently, she was appointed by the Secretary of the Veteran Affairs Sexual Assault and Harassment Prevention Task Force Work Group covering national concerns and issues. She has been received awards and commendation from President George W. Bush, California's Governor's Office, 2006 through 2009, NAACP, Blacks in Governments, and many top community awards. In 2010, she was selected as the Southern California Women of the Year by the California Department of Veteran Affairs. She was the inaugural recipient of the PFC Gladys Schuster. Is that Schuster?
Carter.
Okay. Lost my place. Sorry. Carter Trailblazer Award in August of 2012. She was recognized by the former Department of Veteran Affairs Secretary Robert McDonnell for her service on the National Center for Minority Veterans Committee from 2015 to 2017. Lieutenant Colonel Jackson-Kelley was one of the honorees for the National Daughters of the American Revolution Women in American History 2021 to 2022. She received the prestigious award of African Focus Goodwill Lifetime Achievement Award. Welcome to Stage Black, Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Jackson-Kelley.
Yes, welcome. Thank you.
Wow, that was impressive. I got tired after reading that. Are you tired yet?
I got tired of listening.
Well, you surely have a impressive legacy that you're continuing to embody every day. And I'm proud to be in the number with you one more time. Yeah. I know we've been in quite a few events.
Yes.
So I know you served in 3 military branches, the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. Can you explain how long you served in each and just how did that come in fruition?
Okay, my first branch of service was the Navy Reserves. I joined the Navy Reserves in 1977, and I joined with the intent of becoming an officer because I was a hospital corpsman 2nd class. I was a nurse, and I had an associate degree and you needed a bachelor's in order to be an officer. So I was in school for my bachelor's. And once I got my bachelor's, I went to the commanding officer and told him that I'm ready to be an officer now. And he told me that he didn't have any female billets in the branch. So I applied for the Army Reserves. I went for my physical at in Brooklyn, and I didn't hear from them for about a month and a half. So I called, and they had no record of my having been there. So I applied for the Air Force Reserves, and the recruiter suggested that I go on active duty opposed to going in the reserves. And he explained to me that I could have a lucrative career and that I could go in as an officer and be able to travel and many perks. Okay. So I signed on to go active duty Air Force. And I was in the Air Force for 4 years, 3 months, and 27 days. And then I went into the Air Force Reserves. At the time, my son was very young, and I had to go up to March Air Force Base for my training. So I found out that there was an Army base close to my house. So then I transferred to the Army Reserves, and
now so you could be closer to your house,
right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I didn't have to leave him overnight. So I spent 15 years in the Army Reserves, and I retired in 2003.
Okay. Now, how did you get from Brooklyn to March Air Reserve Base? Brooklyn, New York?
Once I went on active duty, I was stationed at Travis Air Force Base.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was stationed in California, and then I went to Largest Fields, Azores. And when I returned, I came back to California. And so once at George Air Force Base, and I've always wanted to come to California. That was one of the incentives of joining the military. I told him if I could get California that I would go in. And so he told me I got Travis Air Force Base. Okay. And I went in as a captain on active duty.
Okay. Impressive that you were able to negotiate all of this, because in the 70s, it was really rough for women in the military. So that was awesome. Being, putting your education first was a goal. And then ultimately when you had your family, putting your family first. So that was your incentive for changing branches.
Right.
Okay. So when you became an officer, you sort of explained how it sort of transpired, but can you tell us a little bit more about your journey being an officer? Like I know you said what commands you were at, but what were your jobs? I know you were a nurse. So did you work in a hospital, or did you work, in the admin position?
When I was at Travis, I worked my first assignment was a med-surg unit. And that was very traumatic because I had never done medical nursing. I had always done psychiatric or baby clinic. And so it was devastating, really, trying to learn the new machines and everything. And so finally I went to the chief nurse and I told her that I could not do that anymore. And then they transferred me to the pediatrics ward. But the recruiter had told me that I would get pediatrics when I went into the military because that's what my background was in, all psych. So after I was on pediatrics for a few months, I got orders to go overseas. And so overseas was like the hospital was a very small hospital. Sometimes it was closed when there was no patients. So I did admin there as well as all types of nursing, because sometimes if you had some of the civilian women, you would have to do maternal care, so you had all types of nursing, trauma, because you had motorcycle accidents over there. So it was a great.
So you did a whole rainbow of different stuff, because I know you're really out, in reading your resume, I know you're really strong in not only in your skill set as a nurse, but you also have a really strong skill set on the admin side,
Right.
because you were able to navigate both of those worlds while you were in the military.
Right.
I wanted to know about the officer part. I know you said you got your bachelor's degree and then you went in as a captain. Some people have to go through the service academies to become an officer or ROTC. So because you had your bachelor's degree, you automatically were able to become an officer, or they sent you to
No, it was
additional?
it was actually because I had experience as a registered nurse.
Mhm.
My experience with my associate degree, I had been a nurse for about 7 years
Mhm.
before I went on active duty.
Oh, okay.
So they took my civilian experience, coupled with my little military experience that I
Yeah.
had, and they designated the rank of captain.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
didn't have to go through like an officer's
I
training.
went to officer basics officer basic course
Mm-hmm.
was 2 weeks in
Okay.
San Antonio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was quite, I guess, a euphoric experience because I was a captain, and that was considered a high rank.
Yeah, because they were probably
Yeah, right,
lieutenants or.
lieutenant.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them were lieutenants. I think there were a couple, lieutenant colonel who was a physician.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't realize the magnitude of the rank until I got there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Good to know.
So you made a big transition from the military to the civilian world, but you continue to serve your community of veterans. So in reading your resume, I noticed that you were the women's program manager, and you did a lot of stuff for women. Um, can you tell us a little bit about your positions you held at the Department of Veteran Affairs? I know you've gotten a couple awards from several different secretaries of the VA for the work that you have done with the women and the vets as a whole. So, can you just give us an overview of what that transition was like for
Yeah.
you?
Well, my initial position, well, I was at the VA when I first got out of the military, and I was a staff nurse in the psych ward. It was considered a family unit. And I was there for maybe 18 months. And I just felt that I had more to offer than be a staff nurse. So I left and I took an administrative position at a home health agency. And after I had been away for maybe a couple of years or so, one of my friends who was a supervisor called me and told me they had an open position for a head nurse on the 40-bed substance abuse ward. And so I applied for it and I was selected. So, working on the 40-bed substance abuse ward, we had very few women to come through. Usually there were no more than three at a time. So, three women with 37 men. You can imagine what that was like. And so I found myself constantly advocating for the women and trying to be assured that they were safe. So I had suggested that they move them to close to the nurses station, and I made sure that people would knock before they entered their room, and whenever they came to me with issues, I would address them. So I had an affinity for the women veterans, I guess, and that's how, when this job came up as the women veteran program manager, I felt that I was perfect for that job, and so I applied for it.
Well, in a
And
sense, you sort of forced the VA to make that position because there was not a position.
yeah, well, actually, the national
Oh,
decided that there would be, I think there were 20 of us nationwide.
mhm.
And so I was one of the 20. It was either 20 or 21. And so I was one of those selected.
Well, there's this talk about, there's going to be this new Trump administration, and they're talking about overhauling the VA healthcare system. I guess making it more privatized. What are your thoughts about if that
Yeah.
occurs?
If that occurs, it would be devastating I feel that the people that are making those decisions are not aware of the real VA and how it operates. And I think that maybe they should try working there for a few weeks before they make decisions like that. And I know that Hespec, he has said that he didn't feel that veterans were entitled to care unless they were service connected or had a disability. So I think that would be a disservice to our veterans. And I think that eventually the system will go broke if they prioritize. It would. There's just no way that you could have the private physician address the things that are being addressed at the VA level.
Yeah, because some of them they don't understand that culture. I do
Right.
notice a difference.
Yeah.
With understanding veterans and their experience.
And
Right.
that's a big point about the culture, because it's not just treating the disability, it's also treating the veteran,
Right.
because there's such things as moral injuries that don't come under any particular category. And
Absolutely.
they, even prior to Trump, they were talking about privatizing it, but they saw that it didn't work. Even with the community care options, a lot of times at the end of the fiscal year, they're running out of money to pay the community the care
Right.
options. So if that's already happening, it's sort of like you said. I think will put a stress on the system.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. So I know you said you joined the military in 1977, but there has been a lack of stories about military women. Like, I would have never thought women were serving in the military when I was a little girl, because I didn't see that
Right.
where I was from. So what's it been like to try to share the stories, especially of Black service women that have served in the military?
It's been a challenge, and I think that I think the reason why is that for some reason our culture is we do things and we feel that we are doing them, and we just don't need the credit for doing it. And I think that some of us are too modest. We don't toot our own horn. And I think that the other reason is I think that for some reason the women have a tendency to sabotage each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what we were always taught, because it can only be one or two of us at any given thing.
Right.
It's like like you said, 40 beds, it was only three women, and that was, what year was that?
That was in 92, I think it
In the
was.
Okay,
90s.
so
In the
now here we
90s.
are, 2024. The same VA has only 10 beds for women in the drug and alcohol treatment program. So only an increase of 7 beds in over 30 years.
Yeah.
So that shows sort of like the mentality
Right.
of, are there ideas that you have in mind on how we can get these stories out there more? And I know you belong to an amazing organization, the National Association of Black Military Women, and I know you guys are working hard to tell these stories.
What's really interesting to me is if you notice, there's a lot of organization now saying tell your story. And when you look back at the history of the National Association of Black Military Women, we were created for that purpose only. So now you have women in the military service. Their focus is telling the story. You have so many other organizations that are out there saying, we want you to tell your story. When we know that the purpose of the National Association of Black Military Women is to tell the story of Black military women, because that was not being told at all.
And the organization has been around since what, 20, 30 years?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
it's been telling, even it was started by some of the members of the
688.
Right.
But I never heard that before. I never heard that before until Carlton Philpott, who was instrumental in doing the monument. We were at convention, and he called and he said to me, would we be interested in helping to fund the memorial? And one of our members started a collection, and we collected money and sent to the memorial. And then Stephanie Dawson, who's the prior president before I was, she attended the memorial. She and Ruby Robertson, who lived there. And so that's how we really got involved with the 6888. And as a result of that, I got to meet a few of the members. And one in particular is the one that the movie portrays as Lena King. I've been to her home and I visit with her, and we had kind of a friendship before she passed away. And I was so pleased to hear Tyler Perry say that she saw the movie before she passed while she was in hospice.
Yeah.
So I think that we have to have more platforms like this. You know, we have to make sure that we are telling the story. We have to make sure that the young people get involved. They don't know about women veterans. Some of them have no idea that women serve in the military. So we need to go into the schools during Veterans Day and speak with the kids and let them know.
Yeah. I know I went through my whole military career, 20 years, and never heard of the 6888. There was nothing. I traveled overseas, different bases throughout the United States, and never heard that until after I got out and, learned about the National Association of Black Military Women. And then also when I met you at the library in Inglewood, that was my first time seeing the first documentary about the 6888. And then some of the daughters was there, and I just, generally talking to them, and it's like, you all here to see the film? And they're like, yeah, our mother's in the film. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So there's, family members right here, and some of the service,
And we went to when they got awarded their.
Yeah, we had a ceremony after they were awarded their Congressional Gold Medal, and there were some other women that were buried right there in the Inglewood Cemetery, and other families didn't know the other families were buried right there in a local cemetery.
Their house, and we were able to talk to the daughters, and it just touched my heart. Like I'm a writer, and I want to be able to implement something, like you said, even if it's twice a year. Women's History Month in March, and in November, where people can sit and write their stories. Do a 6-week thing leading up to that. Have something, because we do need to tell our story.
Even in December, when they have a Reefs Across America, but I think they only do that at National Cemetery. But some of these women are buried in regular local cemeteries. They're not buried at, all of them are not buried at, the Veterans Cemetery or whatever.
Because they didn't back in those days, like Lieutenant Colonel was saying, they didn't really recognize our service like like it should be, and it's still a challenge to this day.
Yeah, even some of them came back home and didn't share. Like she said, they're very modest, or people didn't really acknowledge them, so they thought less of what they did, and they didn't even share it with their children. So some of their children didn't even know that they had served. So but we all got to do a better job of telling our stories and ensure that it's taken down, passed down to other generations, and documented. But what are your thoughts about the 6888 movie?
I thought it was very well done, and I just hope that people will not take away from the fact that there were other members who should be highlighted as well.
Yeah, because it was 855 women. Yes.
Yeah. And we just had the one, Miss Lena King, who was highlighted in that movie. So I thought it was well done, and I just feel so honored that I spent some time talking with Kerry Washington. She was an ideal person to play that role as Major Adams, Charity Adams.
Yes, she did a wonderful job.
Yeah.
But we want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your continued service in the community with all of these organizations and your mentorship. We really appreciate it. Thanks for watching Stage Black. Always been here, not going anywhere. For more information, you can visit our website, stageblack.org. You can also email us at info@stageblack.org.